What's going on, YouTube? I am sitting in my boat. Here, I'll probably sit right here. And I'm home for at least a few days now. But I wanted to talk about something that I thought was interesting. For those of you who know or follow along what I've done the last few years, I moved from Minnesota, up north in Bemidji, to Tampa right out of college. Worked for 13 Fishing for a couple years. Resigned about a year ago and moved back home to Minnesota. So I haven't been in Minnesota for like prime springtime, like before the season or whatever starts or opens, in a few years. Every time I came back and visited Minnesota, it was always just, to just hang out and fish in the summer. Like it wasn't like during any seasons or anything like that. So I was thinking today, I am going tomorrow morning with a friend to take some pictures of some power poles on the water. I want the guy looking like he's fishing. I want him, run the boat or whatnot. Power pole's a client of mine. And so I was thinking, I was like, well, it'd be really nice for him to be able to cast a couple lures. I could get some close-ups of the lures and stuff like that. But the season isn't open. It doesn't open for like another 2 or 3 weeks in Minnesota. It's like May 11th. Regardless of what you think morally about the season or whatnot, if it's a thing, the right thing or the wrong thing, it's the law right now, and you can't fish for bass, walleyes, or pike before May 11th. Kind of ridiculous in my opinion, but it is what it is. So I got this freaking whatever $1,000 boat here, and I can't fish another 3 weeks for anything that I really want to catch. Then I was thinking, what about dogfish, bowfin, snakeheads, whatever you want to call them? They're a rough fish. For a guy that wants to just go out and catch a few fish and have the hook set feeling, break his boat out, not sit there and flip a little jig to panfish, whatever, that could be a cool option. Why not? I don't like pike fishing in the summer unless you're doing it or like going for them, whatever, because they usually mess up your bass lures, whatever. But pike are closed, so I wouldn't necessarily like dogfish in the summer either, because it just messes everything up because they just bend everything. But if you're specifically going for them, you're putting on big braid, putting on maybe even steel leaders, that could be kind of cool. Like, it'd be kind of fun. If anything, like I said, it's every Minnesotan this time of year wants to get in a boat and start casting, and yeah, the whole 9 yards. They want to feel that hook set. Why not? It's freaking spring. It's exciting. The water's opening up. It's cool. So I'm thinking, all right, well, rough fish, bowfin is a rough fish. They're open all year long. It's like, all right, well then let's just go fish for those. It'll look like we're bass fishing. We throw in a spinnerbait or something is what you'd throw for a bowfin. And then I can take pictures of it at least. But then I was thinking, well, the last thing I need is conservation officer coming up and saying, hey, you guys are bass fishing, and be like, well, actually no, we're dog fishing. And then it'd be a big dilemma and whatnot. And I've thought about it before, and I know a lot of guys use that as an excuse. If you're out there trying to target largemouth, there's bedding bass or whatever you want to do before the season starts, shame on you, right? But if you actually go out there with the intent to try and catch dogfish, how do you do that? And how do you do that without getting in trouble with the law? I didn't know the answer. I called the DNR office this morning, and I'll be switching hands because this is on my phone and I'm getting kind of tired. I called the DNR officer this morning, the main office in Minnesota, and asked. And I got 2 different people. I called back 2 times to get 2 different responses. One of them first said, well, they're open year long, so you can fish for them, but it's discretion of the conservation officer. Okay, what does that mean? Well, it means that depending on the day, if he's having a bad day or a good day, or depending on how he views the law or his own discretion, that's gonna be a thing. Not good or bad. I'm not saying like, you'd be out to get you or anything, but I'm just saying like it's up to them. So that's not good enough for me to want to go out and do that and risk getting a ticket for doing something I'm not intending to do. So then I asked, like, well, what's the thought process behind it? Like, is it per lure? Is it the rods? Is it how you fish them? Is it a depth? Right now, my experience has been, in the springtime, bowfin are doing a lot of the same things a lot of other game fish are doing. They're moving up. They're trying to find forage. They're a predator fish. I've caught them bass fishing on accident in other states in the spring. They're doing a lot of the same things. You're not sight fishing them. You're just kind of working moving baits and going on the bottom and a jig, whatever, hit them in the face and they'll grab it, right? So then you're in a dilemma. I rewind. I asked the person on the phone, and they said, well, if you pull up to a spot and you start catching 4 or 5 bass, and someone sees that, they're gonna think you're bass fishing. I'm like, okay, so does that mean when you catch one, you gotta like move to a new spot, or like how does that work? He's like, well, and then he also said things like, well, if you're in a big bass boat, it's gonna look like you're bass fishing. I'm like, well, you can't disregard what I'm fishing for based on what I'm fishing out of. So you're saying if I got in a kayak or a john boat, versus my bass boat, you know, it's going to be a different story. Like, that's discrimination kind of ish. And again, guys, I'm really just trying to figure out like an actual answer. So he referred me to someone. I called him, left a voicemail, an actual officer to get it from the horse's mouth, right? I left a message. He hasn't called me back. So I called back again, see if I can get somebody else. Got a lady on the phone this time. A completely different answer, which is unfortunate, but we're humans. It is what it is. She said, it's whatever you're intending to fish for. So if I got a bunch of rods up in the front of the boat, and I'm sitting there fishing for dogfish, for on a spinnerbait, a spoon. I mean, they eat it. They eat a crankbait. I've caught them on crankbaits all the time. And that's my intent. Then there's nothing wrong. She said, if you hook into like a game fish or a walleye or a bass or something that's out of season, release immediately, which you would, I would. I would never keep any fish out of season, let alone just immediately release them anyway. So in that sense, I was like, okay, that's great. But honestly, I feel more comfortable if I heard it from a conservation officer. And so in that, her response, to sum it up, was, yeah, go for it, as long as your intent is to catch dogfish, which my intent is to be. I just want to get in my boat. I just want to set the hook. I've been filming people down south fishing for however many months, and I want to freaking fish now. It's warm enough. The water's open. There's all kinds of bodies of water near me. I want to test out my electronics. I want to get my rods all rigged up. I got a bunch of new baits that would kill it for dogfish. I want to set the hook on dogfish. I don't know the answers to this question. I'm hoping that you guys can kind of weigh in, give me some insight. I've left 2 messages on 2 different DNR officers, including the one that would be in my area, that if something was ever called, it would be him. Just so that it would be a heads up. It wouldn't be like a random person trying to defend my case for the first time. But it begs a really good question. Obviously, if you hook into a game fish, you just let it go immediately. It was an accident. I don't know how you could get a ticket for that. But again, I would recommend, and I'm going to consult my local officer and ask. Because if you don't, you risk getting a ticket for something you're not intentionally doing. So now this isn't an alibi for guys to go out there with a fairy wand and a Ned rig and try and bedfish smallmouth or largemouth on a bed before the season starts. If you're sight fishing a fish and someone sees you doing that and you catch it and you let it go and then catch the male on it, then they're gonna know you're bass fishing. That's enough, I would think, for someone to say that. But for throwing moving baits, for continually looking for a dogfish, I want to know what the discretion is. And so hopefully I'll hear back from an officer. This is going to be kind of a controversial topic. I'd love to discuss it with you guys. I have nothing better to do the rest of the day until my wife gets home. And yeah, let's talk bowfin, dogfish. Let me know what you think. Comment below. I got some pain on my knuckle. That's kind of gross. And we'll go from there. Thanks, guys.